It's Platt, and today we tried Texas Legend. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Shiner Bock, a true Texas legend. I'm stunned I haven't done this beer before. It was probably the first craft beer, quote-unquote craft beer I ever tried. Beer that just near and dear to my heart, so figured it would be time to do this review. Shiner Bock comes to us from Spoetzl Brewing. There's no Shiner Brewing, it's called Spoetzl Brewing. It is, however, located in Shiner, Texas. That is in central Texas area. The brewery itself opened in 1909 thanks to the Shiner Brewing Association. It is the oldest independent brewer in the state of Texas. A lot of you folks out there might not know, especially back at that time, still to this day, there are a ton of Czechoslovakian and German immigrants in the central Texas area. And at the time, they were missing their classic German and Czech style lagers. Thus, there was an emphasis to let's get a brewery going. And that's what they did. The original beers they brewed in Shiner were known as Lenten beers. Kind of think of them as kind of the opposite almost of Oktoberfest style beers. Those are also known as Marzen, which means March. They were beers brewed in the spring to be ready for Oktoberfest in the fall. Lenten beers were brewed in the fall to be ready for Lent in the spring, thus Lenten beers. Specifically, they produced something called a Lenten Bock. But that was kind of the origin of the beers there in Shiner. Now, when they opened the brewery, they hired a gentleman named Cosmo Spoetzl to be the initial brewer. Cosmos had an interesting story. He grew up in Bavaria, was in the army, apprenticed in the breweries in Germany, but then went to, of all places, Cairo to run a brewery for 8 years. Actually, something called Pyramid Brewing in Cairo, Egypt. Yes, 100-some years ago they were doing that over there. Oddly enough, he eventually made it to Canada and then finally to Texas. Spoetzl ran the brewery for a few years, but in 1915 finally bought the brewery outright and changed the name to Spoetzl Brewing that it is known as today. Like a lot of breweries faced hard times during Prohibition. They made it through by selling non-alcoholic beer and ice. Apparently they had an ice making facility or ice house and were able to sell ice to help them get through Prohibition. Only 5 breweries in Texas made it through Prohibition, and luckily for us, they were one of them to survive. Real quick, let's jump in their beers. A decent line of beers, nothing too exotic or erotic. They definitely stick with a Texas theme, as you'll see in some of their beers. First, we have Ruby Redbird, 3.2% ABV. This is made with Ruby Red grapefruits grown in the Rio Grande Valley. If you grew up in Texas, you kind of know how big those are. Again, you'll see kind of a Texas theme in a lot of these beers. Next is Prickly Pear, 4.9% ABV. This is made with malted wheat and real Texas prickly pears. Again, the theme, prickly pears, though, do provide a unique flavor. Locally sourced ingredients, hard to beat. Next, there's something called Tex Hex, 7.5% ABV. This is a passion fruit IPA made with hibiscus. This is one of their newer beers. Shiner's starting to get into the IPAs. They're starting to push some boundaries there, so it is kind of neat to see something a little different. Lastly, we have their Black Lager, 5.9% ABV. This kind of harkens back to their German roots. This is what's known as a Schwarz beer and has a slight hint of coffee into it. So, again, they kind of stick with a Texas kind of German theme, but they are, playing around with some other things. Well, before we try this particular beer, though, let's check out the stats. Well, all right, before we jump in on old Shiner Bock, had a couple little fun facts I want to share with you on this beer. The beer itself had been brewed since 1913, since Cosmos was running the brewery, but it had always been a seasonal offering. And it wasn't until 1973 that they decided, all right, let's make this year-round product. And it quickly not only became a hit, but it became their flagship beer, to the point where it drives roughly 80% of the brewery sales. So pretty crazy to think about. Lastly, a unique story I read researching this video. Don't know if it's 100% true, but I kind of want to believe it. Supposedly Willie Nelson almost won the brewery in a high-stake domino game. Apparently he played with the head brewer and things. Next thing you know, the keys to Willie's tour bus is on the table. If you know anything about Willie, you do know he had a history at one time of playing some real high-stake domino games. That is a Texas thing, too. But anyway, I found that an interesting story. Well, but that being said, let's jump in and try Shiner Bock. All right. Perfect. Nice little light khaki head. Up to the light, pretty clear beer, plenty of bubbles, a really dark, deep amber color. Probably on the camera's coming off as a dark brown, but it's more in the light, more of a dark amber. Oh, nice little malty nose, no real hop presence. Let's go ahead and dive in. Oh man, that tastes like happiness. I love, as I told you guys before, I love maltier beers, but this is still very drinkable. Because it's 4.4, we're not in the sixes like a true Bock. Again, that makes it kind of even more drinkable, more of a session style thing. Again, I think your Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors, I think they're like 4.2. So we're in that range, but we get a little more malt, we get a little more body. We pick up some of those darker toffee caramel notes that you get on some of those specialty malts. There's a little bit of sweetness to this, but it's balanced. It's not cloying. Body is still, I don't want to say medium minus, but compared to light beers, that's still a great improvement. Man, just a really nice, fun, drinkable beer. You can drink this in all seasons. You drink in the summer even when it's warm. In the wintertime, we like those dark malts. Man, I've always kind of loved this beer. It brought a little extra flavor, but still very drinkable. You know, all those darker notes, but we're not getting into the coffee, astringent, espresso notes. Just more toffee and caramel type notes. We don't get to the real dark stuff. Overall, just a really nice beer. Again, some people may say this is a Vienna lager, not a Bock. What have you. I just say it's delicious. I'll leave it at that. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bombs up.